Democracy, government of the people, by the people, and for the people. Or is it? Hello and welcome to the Eccentric Side. My name is Uche Odogu, and in this video, I just want to try to make sense of the most popular governments in the world, democracy, and try to understand what is going on there and make sense of it. So in this video, I am not conclusive saying anything, but I'm just trying to understand this term and this system of government. So the video makes sense to you. Don't forget to like this video, share this video with someone, and drop a comment in the eccentric side. And don't forget, ensure you are subscribed. So let's begin. So while growing up, we learned about the different systems of government. We learned about oligarchy, we learned about military rule, autocracy, and we also learned about the popular democracy. And when we were learning about this, we heard it was the government of the people, which means that the people are governed, government for by the people. So the people are the ones in charge of the government, and government for the people, because it is the democracy, the rule is for them. So it is of them, by them, and for them. And it sounded all nice and sweet and dandy. And when they were explaining this to us, they told us that this system of government is a system of government where there are checks and balances, where corruption is minimized to the lowest, where if for any reason a particular political leader is no longer seen as favorable to his people, he can be recalled and they can put a different person there. Elections are done by popular rule, where people elect who they want based on the popularity contest. So if you have the numbers of people that are supporting you through casting of votes, you assume power and rule. So it was a system of government that sounded all sweet. After all, nobody's forcing anything to do anything, right? Nobody is mandating anybody to do anything, right? And in my head, as I process this topic, I think, is there not really force in democracy? Think about it. If democracy is really free, how come there are wars being fought all around the world by some countries to enforce democracy on some other countries? So let me explain what I mean. I know some people might be like, but they are trying to help remove military rule so that the people can see, the space to rule themselves, so to speak. But then, if democracy is really of the people, for the people, and by the people, can't the people fight for their right to speak by themselves? Case example, the United States. They were colonized by the British. I am not entirely sure, I've not seen it in my history books, but I do not really think anybody fought for the United States for them to get their democracy. So if nobody fought for the United States to help them get their democracy, how come it feels a lot like the United States is fighting for other countries for them to get their democracy? Question now becomes, are they really fighting for these countries to get their democracy? Or is there a particular reason why they are trying to fight for these people? Say natural resources, for example. Because if you look at history of where the US has quote and unquote gone to help fight for democracy, can you really see success stories? The military came into Libya. We can see what is happening in Libya. That the US military had interference in Libya. You can see where Libya is. The US military had interference in Iran. You can see where Iran is. And most recently, in the Ukraine and Russia war, the information that they passed across was that they are fighting for democracy. The Ukrainians need to be able to defend themselves from the Russians. But is that really what they want from there? Because come to think of it, if what you're really fighting for is for the people to be able to have a point and have a say in what they do, the free lunch money that the past administration of the United States government was funneling into the Ukrainian government seems to be an overkill, because it looks like the way it was working, the Ukrainian government, President Zelensky, can just throw it into the US, get some pocket money, and go back to his country. And it seems to be happening over and over and over again. And then Trump came in and was like, no, this can no longer go on. And then there was a fallout between the Trump administration and the Ukrainian government. So if what they are really fighting for over there is for the freedom of the Ukrainian people, isn't something just a little bit fishy? Let's move forward from this. So when we talk about democracy, another thing that is thrown around is freedom of the people to choose their leaders. And then the question really becomes, on what basis are people choosing their leaders? Let me explain. Now, it is one thing if, say, person A, let's call him Dixon, and person B, let's call him, for sake of this conversation, Okoro. So if, for example, Dixon and Okoro are contesting to lead a particular country, let's call this country Ozumba. So Dixon and Okoro are trying to be the leaders of Ozumba, and what they are doing is coming to announce what they will do differently, how they will lead, their policies, their modes of operation for the duration of time they will be leading Ozumba land. And then people choose based on that. Maybe that could be democracy. But that would be living in a utopia, because there are other intricacies that oftentimes people overlook, which is the power of connections. So, as human beings, we are always going to have the feeling to listen and to pay more attention to support someone who looks like us, sounds like us, says what we like to hear, maybe is even from where we are from. So, for example, if Dixon is from my side of Ozumba and is contesting against Okoro, who is from the other side of Ozumba, there's a very high possibility that when Dixon is talking, I would, whether or not he's saying rubbish, I want to pay attention to him. But on the other hand, Okoro might have the biggest points, the better system of government, the better policies. But then, because Dixon is my guy and is from my side, I may want to listen to him. Now, so people might, don't get me wrong, some people might actually listen to what the other person has to say if he has the better points and actually vote for him. But majority of the people will want to listen. Look at, for example, in the 2023 election, and I'll come back to my previous points. In the 2023 election, look at how the votes were displayed. If you want to get a northern presidential candidate, for example, there's a very high possibility that majority of his votes will come from the north. If you want to get a southern government, majority of the votes will come from the south. And I'm not talking about Lagos. I know that the president lost Lagos, but then look further than that. Majority of his votes will come from his location. So is that really democracy? Back to my point I was trying to drive at before. Now, Dixon and Okoro to rule Ozumba. Now, points are brought, but then because Dixon has more connections, say his people in where he's from by population has more numbers, there's a high possibility that Dixon might win. So there is popularity contests in which people don't really talk about when it comes to democracy and election and ruling and electing people to power. There is also money. Yes. All around the world, there's some form of monetary incentives before people actually elect members. Nigerian election. If I wanted to be president, me, noble little me, Uche Odogu, wants to be president of Nigeria. Think about it. Even if I go and bring the world's smartest policies and ideas, I won't win. I won't even be elected because number one, to be elected, I have to go through a political party system, right? Political parties were selling presidential tickets. Some were selling 100 million, some cheaper. And it's not just the political tickets that I need to get. I also need to, water the ground, as we say in Nigeria. We need to settle some people. So this has now moved from government of, for, and by the people to government for the wealthy. Because if the poorest person with the brightest ideas can't become ruler of a country, then it's not really democracy, is it? Yes, he might come with his ideas, and then people will actually put money behind him and then help him win the election. But tell me now, if you are to invest your money, which may go into millions of whatever currency you're talking about, wouldn't you feel like you have a stake in the government? And wouldn't the government in power feel like they have to answer to you in some form? Because if you're investing, you have to gain your return on investments. You're not just donating to go to bed. That is the reason why in the United States, when a particular person gets into power, for example, and does not listen to people who put him there, there's a very high possibility, and oftentimes you'll find out that for some weird reason he falls out of favor with some people, some bad news starts circulating about him, and before you know, he's impeached. Simply because he was not listening to those who financially put him there. So at that point, is government still for the many or for the few? Okay, let's proceed. Now, another point people come about with democracy is that since it's for everybody and not for a few people, it makes it better. But then we have interest groups. Interest groups in Nigeria, like the Ndigbo forums, what's it called? The Ohanese in the Igbo land. We have the Awera. Am I pronouncing it right? Arewa, yes, Arewa Forum in the north. We have the Afenifere in the southwest. So, what now happens is people who want to rule, because they know that instead of trying to appeal to the masses, you can also take a shortcut, appeal to these interest groups who will then go forward to talk to their members. So they will now try to get into the good graces of these interest groups. Now, because they are trying to get into the good graces of these interest groups, how then they do this? They do it just by going to talk to them, tell people to vote for me. You have to go with something. Money exchange hands. Contracts has to be agreed upon. Positions has to be promised. So somehow we now get back again to scratch my back, I scratch your situation. Where at the end of the day, it's a matter of what can you do for us that the other candidates cannot do. And when we can reach that agreement, they will talk to their members, and then maybe you get some extra votes that can push you across the finish line. So, is democracy really of the people, by the people, and for the people? And not just in Nigeria, actually, across board. In the United States, you even have unions. So, road transport unions, education unions, different unions for different occupations. And then what they then try to do is to try to sing a song that appeals to these unions. And when you get the support of these unions, the unions will endorse you. And when they endorse you, somehow, you get into power. And how are you appealing to them. Maybe money won't exchange hands because they try to not be too obvious about these things. Maybe you just assure them of some policies, maybe rights of the road transport workers, or rights of the industrial workers, or rights of the teachers. Just coin it behind one fashionable term. Make it sound all nice and sweet, like you support them, you support the work they do. And then when you say you support the work they do, they support you, you get into power. When you get into power, there will now be some initiatives, some trainings will now start popping up for these unions, some schemes will start popping up for these unions. And when they start popping up, what will happen? Money will exchange hands. And when money exchange hands, I ask the question I've been asking, is democracy really of the people, by the people, and for the people? Because at the end of the day, it looks like it's who can promise people more incentives, more offerings, more funds, more contracts that can get into power. And so that brings me to my point of, does democracy really work? Think about it. Let me know your comments in the comment section below, and don't forget to like this video, share this video with someone, and ensure you are subscribed to the Eccentric site. Till next time when I come your way, from me to you is stay eccentric.